Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Film Feast. My name is Sam Donchis, and I'm your host. And on this episode of the Film Feast, we will be talking about Mr. Ridley Scott. You may know Ridley Scott as the director of Alien, Blade Runner, and Gladiator. But it actually turns out that Ridley Scott has made 20 films. 20! And I've watched all of them. No, I'm dead serious. I've seen every single one of them. Most of the movies I had never seen, other than Black Hawk Down and a vague remembrance of Hannibal, as well as bits and pieces of Gladiator. I just have to stop and marvel at that for a second. 20 movies. Ridley Scott is 76 years old. 20 movies is an immense career, and it's really unfortunate that most of his movies aren't all that good. As it turns out, his 21st movie, Exodus: Gods and Kings, comes out this December, and it looks to continue his reign of being a solid director of epics. See, that's one of two things that Ridley Scott is fairly well known for, is being a director of really memorable sci-fi movies like Alien and Blade Runner, and then he has his epics like Kingdom of Heaven and Gladiator. But in this episode, I want to focus on his sci-fi side, because there have been a lot of rumblings about Prometheus 2 lately, and a lot of questions being asked, capital of which is, why did they make the first one at all? A lot of people don't like that movie. I'm a little torn on it. I think it's okay. I love it visually. Its story kind of frustrates me. And I think the fact that they tried to anchor it so much into the Alien franchise ultimately weighed it down a good bit. But the other question being asked is Prometheus 2 going to happen at all? And is Ridley Scott going to direct it? Several episodes ago on the Film Feast, I had talked about how Ridley Scott had a sci-fi film slated for March of 2016. And a lot of the stories coming out were that, it was definitely going to be Prometheus 2. And I don't remember exactly, but I think that I had also given the announcement that it was going to be Prometheus 2. It's not. In fact, it's not even coming out on March 2016. It's coming out sometime in late 2015. It's called The Martian. The Martian is based on a novel of the same name by author Andy Weir, and it's about an astronaut who is on Mars and he is stranded on Mars. So I guess it's kind of like Castaway, only on an alien planet. I could be down for that. The Martian will star Matt Damon, which is definitely a very smart leading man choice. But the cast is also rounded out by a fantastic ensemble of actors, not just from a dramatic background, but also comedians. The cast of The Martian also includes Jessica Chastain, Kristen Wiig, Kate Mara, Michael Pena, Jeff Daniels, Mackenzie Davis, and as of just recently, Askel Hinney and Donald Glover. You can definitely pick out some of these actors for their more dramatic roles, like Jessica Chastain, Michael Pena, and Kate Mara. And while I haven't seen The Newsroom, a lot of people have told me that Jeff Daniels is a really solid dramatic actor, but I've always seen him as more on the funny side of things. I don't know much about actress Mackenzie Davis, although I have seen a few of the movies that she's been in. I don't know enough about her to really form a full opinion on her. She plays more supporting roles in those movies, and from the looks of this write-up on The Wrap, this movie's gonna be the same deal for her. But what I really want to talk about here is the more comedic casting choices, with actors like Kristen Wiig and Donald Glover. I know that Kristen Wiig can play serious roles. She's played multiple more dramatic roles in the last couple of years. And then Donald Glover, I also know he has the capabilities to play a more dramatic role. And that was exciting to me to be like, oh wow, these two actors who are usually known for their comedy are going to be in this big budget movie playing more dramatic roles. But after reading their character bios, it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. It seems like they're going to be playing bit roles that lend themselves more to comedic relief, which is a bit of a bummer. Jessica Chastain will play the leader of the rescue mission. While it doesn't specify if she's mission control leader or actual commander leader, I'm going to assume it's the latter. And Michael Pena, Kate Mara, and Askel Hinney will also play astronauts. And here's where I get a little less excited for the movie. Jeff Daniels will play the director of NASA, and Kristen Wiig will play the director of its media operations, basically its PR rep. And Mackenzie Davis and Donald Glover are going to play bright, young NASA employees, which I'm just like, Casting directors, what are you doing? Maybe I'm overreacting because those casting choices alone make it seem like, oh, NASA's gonna be this, everything's fun and games sort of thing until someone gets trapped on Mars alone. That's not necessarily going to be the situation. I don't know the tone of the book, and this is why I need to read more. Because ever since hearing about The Martian, I've wanted to check it out, but it's really unrealistic for me to say, oh yeah, I'm gonna have time to read this book before late 2015, because my life is so consumed by television and movies and sometimes a video game over here. Reading just is such a side note for me. It's Game of Thrones, while I'm trying to fall asleep or on a flight. Despite that one admittedly ridiculous assumption I am making, I'm very excited for The Martian. It sounds like Ridley Scott is trying to make a much more personal sci-fi story, and that's very intriguing to me. And remember, by this time he will be 77 years old. That's crazy. He hasn't made a movie that I really truly love since Gladiator, and even that movie I don't really include it in my favorites. I appreciate movies like American Gangster and Prometheus and Matchstick Men, but movies like Thelma and Louise and Blade Runner and Alien, those movies are timeless. So yes, I am very much so hopeful for The Martian. In fact, I wouldn't even be mad at him if he never made Prometheus 2. And then there's also that Blade Runner sequel that's floating around in the ether, and eventually some producer is going to pull that out of the abyss and say, "Here, Ridley Scott, direct this monstrosity." And he might make it good, and it might suck, and it might be amazing. I don't know. Really, I try not to worry about stuff like that. So are you upset that Ridley Scott's next sci-fi film won't be Prometheus 2? Are you happy that he is adapting a novel that is so fresh and out there, and I really want to read it? And have you read The Martian? What do you think of that? Type with your fingers and let me know in the comments below. That is it for this episode of the Film Feast. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a pleasure making this video for you. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do that. Also check out the Film Feast on Facebook and my personal Twitter account. You can see all my ramblings about movies and TV and stuff. It's actually pretty boring, but I also have a Letterboxd account. That's a fun thing to do. And if you love movies and you watch a lot of movies, you should make an account. Join me on the next episode of the Film Feast, where I will be talking about a new documentary coming from Draft House Films, The Look of Silence. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. I thought the first episode of The Flash was excellent, and I think the pilot is worth your time. So for starters, why is that? Well, first off, there is Barry Allen, played by Grant Gustin. I think he is an extremely compelling character, and that was one of my biggest concerns, was that Grant Gustin, just wouldn't be interesting enough to infuse this character with any personality or relatability. You probably figured that The Amazing Spider-Man 3 would be the next film to come out in the chronology, and then that film would lead right into the Sinister Six film. That's actually not the case. Sony has announced that the Sinister Six will be coming out on November 11th, 2016. And The Amazing Spider-Man 3, well, that's been pushed back 2 years from its 2016 release date to 2018. Damn, that is a little less than 4 years away.